is the show for high-performing executives who want to stay sharp in the C-suite. Today, we're talking about AI, automation, and anxiety, the hidden cost of operational change. Everywhere I look, as I talk to executives day in and day out, they are saying there's pressure at the C-suite, at the very top, to deal with this kind of change, specifically with AI and automation. So I wanted to talk about that pressure specifically with COOs, Chief Operation Officers. A recent study found that 64% of organizations are saying poor data quality is the top barrier for their digital change. And that falls squarely on operations, right? They're trying to figure this stuff out. And only 9% of those said that it's truly embedded into their strategy. So the nightmare, the thing that's keeping these COOs up is, how do we do this? Like, how do we transform ourselves? I actually hate the term digital transformation, and my guest today knows that. But the reality is every single COO is trying to figure out how to just make this work. Some things that you need to know: 77% of companies admit right now their data quality is average or worse. Only 9%, again, have made actual digital changes right now, even though we're talking about AI and the cleanliness of data and the usage of data with your AI every single day. And the biggest thing we're hearing is that poorly aligned tech investments are really making things more complex and costing companies a lot more money. So with all that data, with all that information about the poor data that's out there, I thought we should bring on ProVoice expert Vanessa Dodds. She is an operations executive. Go check out her LinkedIn profile. She's done some huge work in the space. And I really wanted to just get her perspective on all of this. So first of all, Vanessa, thanks for coming by and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So I want to talk about your philosophy, because you believe in fixing the systems first. In fact, you have an upcoming book coming out on that subject as well. And your philosophy is pretty simple. You know, you fix the systems before you spend. That when you step into a new engagement, you really need to be thinking about that first. So when you go into an organization, because I know you work with mid to large size companies on this kind of problem, when you're starting that, what's the first thing you're assessing and trying to uncover that's really, kind of broken beneath the surface of it? How does that work?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So the hardest part I would say is you need to get in, and a lot of times the data is assumption data. It's not concrete data that has been done, like qualitative, quantitative assessments and surveys and all that stuff. It's some, your leadership to your executives, they're making assumptions why things aren't working. They don't have the true picture. So that's the hardest thing when you go in, is to kind of wade through all the data that exists of their kind of planning stage and how they went through the implementation to figure out, was that core data real? Internal feedback data as well as external, point of the customer and voice of the customer, what they really needed to hear, why they were doing what they're doing as far as AI integration, operational changes, all of that. So that's the hardest point, is to figure out what data already exists, what analysis has already been done, and then it's kind of redoing it. And a lot of people hate to redo work that they say has already been done, but you need to get that quality control of where are you actually at, what's working, what's not, and then really what the needs are. And it's not just, the tech investments that are going into everything, but also the operations. So you need to make sure you know where the true gaps in operations exist. And that's, again, factual data. Where does it exist from that qualitative and quantitative analysis? So you know how you improve the operations first before layering on any new change initiative, any new technology, AI, all of those things.
Yeah, you and I have been talking a lot together about AI work slop, that
Yes.
term that came out, how companies rushed to implement AI so that they could say they implemented AI, only to realize they were creating more work for people that humans were going to have to then clean up and fix. And so I want to talk about the myth of change by purchase, which is, we're seeing a lot of mid-sized firms, but even some of the larger firms, believing that the simple solution is to buy the new tech, right? That, or to implement the AI in this case, that's going to get progress. Why does that mindset fail? Why is it the wrong mindset? And how do you help COOs and C-suites kind of shift away and go towards that systems first approach that you adopt?
Again, it goes back to what's working because a lot of times there's those gaps. And so if you layer on a tool, it's a shiny new object. Yes, of course, everyone wants to do it and you're trying to stay competitive. So I understand the need to implement, the tech and the AI and everything. But if your operations are not solid, that you have a process that is tried and true, it works, it delivers, your people understand it, backwards, forwards, and they do it like pretty much blindfolded without any question, great handoffs and everything. If those don't exist, really the tech or any automation just breaks it faster. And while that shiny new tool was supposed to streamline and make things go faster and have greater output for customer experience, it ends up creating the sludge of everything because the employees don't know how to use the tools. The employees are not understanding why it was integrated into the operations when the operations in their mind was already broken. So why are we layering on something? But their voice sometimes isn't always heard or listened to or even asked. And so that's where the problem lies, is layering on something onto a broken system only will break faster. And that is the hardest thing with operations. You really have to be that as a chief operating officer, you have to be the advocate for your entire team and really know what's working and what's not working and make sure it's fixed before anything's layered on. And you have to be able to say, no, we need to hold on. We need to do some deep dive analysis before it's done and have that voice and, kind of that business case as to why you need to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I know that you're a fractional operations executive, meaning COOs and can hire you to come
Mhm.
in and work on things like this, which I think is huge because you need those fresh eyes. You need that person that isn't, ignoring or making assumptions because they've worked there for a really long time. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit.
Mhm.
Tell me about a time where you went into a company organization and saw that they had jumped on automation too soon. Can you talk a lot, or maybe there's a pattern you're seeing right now? There's a certain type of automation or AI usage, something like that, that people are adopting too soon. What's going wrong, and how do you suggest they course correct?
Yeah. So one of the biggest cases, it was a $47 billion public sector initiative that I went in. Okay, well, we know our government is a little slower to a lot of times innovate, and so we found that, but yet they wanted to jump on it and they wanted to put in the automation tools and they were really looking at layering in tech. But one thing that really was a hurdle for them, the people, they didn't have the knowledge to utilize those tools. We think, oh, we're in right now, we're here, you and I, we're in the United States and stuff. And you're like, oh, yeah, technology, we talk about it like it's vastly utilized, but there's still pockets that isn't. And so that's what they found, that while some of their team members were even coming in, to the agencies and they didn't have the knowledge, to understand how to use these advanced technologies. And so that was the first hurdle. The second hurdle was, a lot of it is legacy systems. So you have this legacy knowledge where you don't want to change. You have that, you're really, you're adverse to change because in your mind things are working. But a lot of times it's paper and pen still where you need to get on the electronic systems. That's the first barrier. And that's what I ran into with this one project. So while they had great strategic initiatives, and goalposts and KPIs designed, they didn't even have the infrastructure as far as personnel knowledge to processes to even begin to implement that. So I think again it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that more work will come from not doing the investigative part on the front end and creating those solid frameworks and those solid processes and ensuring that people are trained and even able to utilize the tools first. That's the first thing you have to do.
I love it. It's like readiness, right? You keep talking
Yes.
about fixing the system first. It's like having that readiness and figuring it out. I want to I want to, first of all, give a couple shout outs. We're live on LinkedIn today. So I want to give a shout out to Janine Bennett, Dr. Janine Bennett. She says, we've taught machines to think faster, but we still haven't taught leaders to pause long enough to listen. I think that is a beautiful statement. Absolutely fantastic. And a shout out to Radul Islam. He says, good morning, all. Great topic for discussion in the AI era. This is very important for every company to develop as well. They've got to adjust their business before upgrading. Thank you for those comments, everyone on LinkedIn. If you have a question for Vanessa regarding this topic, please pop it in there as well. And hopefully there'll be a little time here at the end for her to answer them. Okay, so Vanessa, You talk about slowing down to speed things up.
Mhm.
Okay. Right now, the C suite, especially chief operating officers, are being told modernize now,
Yeah.
modernize now. Like, it's we're being told it's a lot cheaper. Figure out a way. We're hearing every other big company saving millions of dollars. We should be saving millions of dollars too. How do you convince the C suite to slow down, pause a hot minute, and focus on fixing those fundamentals while still making them feel like they are going to move forward and get that modernization and that money saving? How do you approach it?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, right? And I think, you know, 99% of our Fortune 500 companies, they are well into year three for the most part, where they're really strategizing and scaling up. And so, if their financial officers are saying, we need to pause a minute because we're not seeing the fiscal gains, that's to the advantage of the mid-sized companies and the small-sized businesses to actually listen and, adhere to maybe slowing down isn't such a bad thing. Let's make sure, again, all of these tools are making fiscal sense so we can have a faster ROI of fiscal gains with AOI by learning from our bigger, corporate partners that are already out there widely testing it. So I think that's the biggest business case that chief operating officers, chief strategy officers can take back to their C suite and say, well, yes, they're showing great gains in productivity, which that's one of the reasons we want to do it. And, they're retraining staff. And so it's creating these new roles with higher pay and all of those advantages, so gains are coming, but slowing down to make sure that fiscal gain is there and ensuring that what you're going to test or purchase makes the best sense for your business sector, even for your business, is going to be advantageous. And so that's what I say, kind of do your research, look to your corporate partners that are already well into this, and bring that back as a business case and be able to talk about it, and strategize from there.
I love that because you're not saying, look, hey, we're going to slow this way down.
No.
You're just saying we're going to be measured here. And I think as we hear more and more of the stories like AI Workshop and other things where there's it's becoming public what's failed and what's cost companies money.
Mhm.
Hopefully that will also make these C suites say, wait, let's take a more methodical approach to this. And by methodical, I don't mean long, I
Right.
just mean what you're saying, like dive in and look a little closer. I love that feedback. All right, let's talk about measuring the real ROI on this,
Mhm.
right? When you think about operational change. So, in your experience, what are the early signals that the operational change that they're making, whatever they're doing and implementing, is actually delivering value and it's not just adding cost and complexity? What are you looking for when you're in that situation?
Yeah, well, I just said about the fiscal gains. Unfortunately, that's always the last piece to ever show the true ROI. But what you're looking for is first adoption, your adoption gains. What is the willingness to adopt? What is the efficiency rate of your adoption? So that's your people, that's your human centric aspect of all of this. That's going to be your first thing to really show the gains. Then you're going to be looking at your customers and saying, okay, are they getting better customer service or better response from our teams or better quality products or services from us by, being more attentive, having that AI or that technology adoption? So you're looking at those aspects as well. But then you always have to be looking at the operations, again, back to the gaps. And what you're going to see out of that is, are things speeding up and being more efficient? Are processes, you have that communication loops where you're able to see those gains in how quickly you can resolve problems. That's a gain where you really want to look at operationally as well. And then you have your head count too. And I know AI always gets the bad, rep for it's going to destroy jobs. But as I just said, really it's going to enable you to retrain and upskill employees and ensure that they maybe have a higher mobility of economic opportunity. So that's going to be another gain that you want to look at as well. So you're going to look at your operational efficiency, you're going to look at your customer experience, ROI, and your fiscal gains is in there too, but also then I would say your workforce gains. How are you really able to make an impact on that economic gain? And so that's kind of an exterior versus and an interior piece as well.
I love it. Yeah. So there's definitely things that can be measured that you're
Yeah.
looking for. And I'm assuming that you also, from the beginning, are trying to set expectations around that, which is phenomenal. Look, Folks, for any executives out there who are listening to this and you're about to greenlight a major AI initiative or an automation project, you really need to be paying attention to what Vanessa's saying right now for the sake of your own career, right? Like the last thing you want to do is greenlight something like this because it is going to fall back on you. That being said, Vanessa, give me a power pitch. What should they absolutely do before they ever spend a single dollar? What should they all walk away with thinking about today?
Dr. Bennett actually said it, and so I'm going to repeat it. So I can't say it was mine. She said it first. Pause. Pause. You need to pause, think through the strategy, do that analysis, and then see which areas as you're test piloting different departments and then maybe fully rolling it out to your business operations. Figure out where it works best. It's not going to be the business case and the usage for everything. Everything's not going to get necessarily automated with AI. That's not going to be your primary tool, but there is going to be automation throughout everything. So figure out what that lens is and how it works. But yeah, pause. Do that analysis piece is really what I say.
I love it. This has been so helpful. Vanessa, what's the best way for people watching this today to connect with you, especially if they're interested in having you come in and potentially consult or do fractional work for their operations organization?
Yeah, you can always find me on LinkedIn. So it's Vanessa Dodds, and that's where you can find me. And if you do ask to connect with me, make sure you mention that you saw me on the Pro Voice podcast, and I'll make sure to connect and then let's start a conversation. Happy to chat.
I love it. So remember, folks, fix the systems first. Here's the thing, tech is not going to fix your chaos. It's just going to scale the chaos. You really got to think about the things that Vanessa shared today. That's our episode today on AI automation and anxiety, the hidden cost of operational change. Thank you again, Vanessa Dodds. You're an amazing pro voice. We are so lucky to have you on the show today, folks. Please reach out to her, follow her on LinkedIn, message her on LinkedIn. She really knows her stuff, and I'm sure she could help your organization. Good luck, everyone. Have a great week. Go get them.